So, welcome back to the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast from me, Nick, and my mate Dom. This is episode 7 already, and we're delighted with how it's going. We're delighted with the feedback we're getting, but we don't sit on our laurels. We try and keep things interesting and fresh and different, and we try to just think about things that proper football fans who are going to games are going to be talking about on the way there, in the car, in the pub, in the concourse, that kind of stuff. Today we've got a subject which is probably close to everyone's heart as the season's just kicked off. We're recording this after 2 weeks of the League One and League Two. We've got one weekend of the Championship that's just happened, and we're about to start the Premier League next weekend as we record this. So it seems right to ask at the time of recording, what are we looking forward to for the new season? So for those who don't know, this is a podcast of two mates who met at Middlesbrough. There's a whole backstory on why it's called the Half and Half Scarf. Please have a look at episodes 1, 2 or 3, etc. and you'll get the backstory. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my mate Dom and say welcome back to the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast, mate.
Cheers, Nick. Lovely to be here. Can't believe it's episode 7 already. That's bonkers, to be honest, but we're loving it, by the way, everyone, so please keep listening, stay tuned, plenty to talk about. And as always, we start the show with the shirts we're wearing. And
can I stop you there? You're wearing a shirt that I know you absolutely hate. What the hell's going on? Why do you hate it? B, why are you still wearing it?
Well, I never wear it, but I thought as an interesting take for the pod, because we always wear shirts we love, I thought I'd wear one that I hate. So this is Everton's shirt from the 13-14 season. Our second season into a 3-year contract with Nike, who treat us like shit, made appalling kits for us. And midway through this second season, I think Everton felt the same because they spat their dummy and cancelled the contract. And we went back to Umbro where we got some proper kits. But I hate this because it's just one of these generic, let's not think about it kits that a manufacturer makes for you and they don't care. Horrible, great big, massive yellow, white stripes around the arms. Horrible collar, horrible fabric, totally unimaginative, no detail. But the worst thing about it, if you notice, it's the one season where we had this hideous badge. And this is the badge that they suddenly changed with no consultation to all the match-going fans and said, this is your new badge. It looks like something a kid drew in, play school.
It looks like Everton have suddenly got into beekeeping, but I'm conscious of the fact that a lot of people are listening rather than watching. If you want to see how hideous that shirt is, please click over the YouTube channel. In honour of the fact that it's the new season, I'm wearing Boro's new away kit. I've already got my tickets for Millwall away and Norwich away, so I'm looking forward to wearing this with pride at 2 away games coming up. But we won our first home game. Let's see what happens when we go to Millwall on Saturday as we speak. We'll know the result of that by the time this episode comes out. So we've talked about what are we looking forward to from the new season. You're in a new stadium, obviously, and I know you've had the big pre-launch with the game against Roma and the Veterans game, etc., which had a full house, and sort of it's almost like a last test bed, if you like, before the league season starts. Are you looking forward to being in a new stadium, Don? We're going to talk about that as a subject separately on another podcast, but what's your expectations and thoughts around looking forward to that?
I'm nervous about it, Nick, to be honest, because as well as and as good as a club might plan a new stadium and try and make it as unique and as good as they possibly can, it can still just feel a bit like a sterile bricks and mortar concrete environment until you get in there and bed in and start to build memories as a club. Felt very strange yesterday. I've been to the first test event, which I wasn't really considering that much because it only had 10,000 people there. It was a cold winter's night. It was never going to feel like it would with a full fan base in. Yesterday, I had 52,000 in there. It's muted because it's still pre-season. It's not the same as a league match where it really gets going and the fans are more invested. But it was a strange sensation, I have to say. It's mixed on various fronts because you're sitting in new seats, not all with your mates because we're all now in different places because of all our season ticket tenures, etc. So that was unique, but it was odd not being at Goodison Park, which I'm an Everton fan as well as a Borough fan, so I love Goodison Park. But I've always loved it as a neutral as well. It's a cracking ground, and I just didn't feel anything yesterday. That's the weirdest thing about it. As beautiful it was, I didn't feel anything, and that concerned me.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of pods down the line. We're going to be talking about what's the new stadium experience.
Yeah,
It's
that's
30 years
definitely,
since
yeah,
30 years since the Borough moved into Riverside. Obviously, West Ham have moved into stadiums, Spurs, Arsenal over recent sort of memory, etc. We're just interested in that, but we're going to cover that as a separate podcast.
yeah.
So I think for you, you're looking forward to the fact that you might create a few memories in that stadium as a starting point. Would that be fair?
I am. My going back to this title subject of the pod, what we're looking forward to. I'm looking forward to a full season under David Moyes. There's a positive air about the team, positive air of what we could achieve this season. I don't think in terms of success in winning something, but not going through the same turmoil we have the last few years in being down the bottom,
Mm.
struggling with relegation, worried about PSR, worried about points deductions. We seem to be on a much more level financial footing, bidding for players that we wouldn't normally bid for. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the season pans out, um, and hopefully get off to a winning start. Try and be strong from the outset
Yeah.
and be positive. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. And again, we've talked about this, but also linked into the start of the season. It's always at the start of the season. The transfer window is still live, and a lot of
Mm.
activity still happens Premier League wise for another month. So I'd like a settled squad and everyone to be in place now, but there's still that excitement of who might come in the door. So,
I know from a previous podcast and conversations off air that you would be absolutely delighted to see Jack Grealish in an Everton shirt. Not the Everton shirt, because that's shit,
that's a
but
terrible. Yes,
Jack Grealish in Everton shirt, you'd be a happy man, wouldn't you, when it comes to September the 1st?
I would. I really would. Read a really nice article this week in the Liverpool Echo. Alan Stubbsy, brilliant player for us over the years, proper Scouser, proper Everton fan. Said he'd been away on holiday and met Jack Grealish out there. I think it was Marbella they were in, or Mallorca or somewhere. Had a night out with him and spent the entire evening saying what a glorious club it is and you should come in time for us, and how loved he'd be, how free he would be, and he'd get to play every game and express himself. All of which was music to my ears, because if I could have a night out with Jack Grealish, I think we'd have a good few beers, me and Jack, and I'd love him to come to the Everton. I think what Alan said is absolutely spot on. And
Oh,
apparently, I was at the game yesterday, and the mate I was with knows someone who knows Adrian Heath. And apparently, Adrian Heath is mentioned. I don't know where this is, so don't quote me, anybody, but I said that he knows people in Jack Grealish's camp, and he is really keen and interested to come to us. I think because he lives in the northwest, he's settled there, wouldn't have to up
mm.
sticks and move. He's got a young child. I think his baby's about a year old or just under, just over. So if you're looking for a move for 1 year to kind of reignite yourself, you don't have to up sticks and move abroad. You can just concentrate on your football, come to an environment where you're loved. So fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. We can wish.
Okay, there's always someone who knows someone who knows
Yeah,
someone, so
yeah.
just be
I love
careful.
those. Yeah, I love those because we all know that really they're probably it just gives you something to be excited about, doesn't it? And think
It,
maybe
it
it's true.
It does. Now, I've jotted down a few things, well, more than a few things. I've got a list of mile long of things I'm looking forward to for the season. I'm going to start with probably upsetting a few fans, right? Just because of delusion and because it's good to have a little poke at fun of people or whatever it might be. So I'm going to start with Stoke fans, okay? Now, Stoke fans, every single summer for the last 7 or 8 years have said we've had a good transfer window. We've had a great transfer window. This is us. We've got a great manager. We've got a great transfer window. I'm looking forward to Stoke finishing between 17th and 18th or 14th and 17th because that's where they always finish. I'm sorry, Stoke fans. I don't care how good your transfer window is. I don't care how good Mark Robbins is. You are cursed. You will finish between 14th and 17th. Accept it. Get on that bus right now. Nothing's going to change. Sorry.
Yes, they beat Derby 3-1, didn't they, yesterday? Good result at the start of the season for them. So, yeah, it's a poison chalice. I think it really is a cursed job. you know, for the first time though, and I'm not a huge Stoke fan. I mean, literally, football wise, they've bored everyone to death for years. I mean, I do know some Stoke fans, and I remember the guy I worked with saying that, Pulis football was some of the hardest years of his life. You know, and he said, yeah, we were in the Premier League, but you could have been in any league. It was just soul destroying to watch.
Yeah.
My thoughts on Stoke, mate, are a little bit different. I think mainly because I actually do really like Mark Robbins, and I don't wish him ill. I actually think I rate him so highly as a manager that I'd like him to do well, because I think that would highlight how good he is as a manager. That he is finally someone who can turn Stoke around. So I wish them well because of him, but not really as a club. I don't really have much affection for Stoke, mainly because of probably how they're run and their owners, and not really into that much, to be honest. And yeah, so let's wait and see.
Well, none of this sort of initial bit of Mickey taking and dropping things in that are going to annoy people is wishing anyone ill. It's not. I'm going to turn to my favourite one now, which is Leeds. And I've got a load of people who I know listen to this who are Leeds fans, and I'm sorry, but, this is just a bit of fun, a little bit of a dig, really. Leeds are a massive club, we get that, but they're a one city club. They're basically, you're the only club in Leeds, you're the only club of that size around. And you've been in League One as long as you've been in the Premier League this side of the millennium, really. So I just want that delusion of we're massive, we're massive, we're massive, just to be a bit tempered a little bit. You're in the Premier League, well done. But you're equally likely to come straight back down here you did last time. Okay, you stayed up for one season, but ultimately just be a little bit respectful of other people, thinking that, we're Leeds, we're massive. You're nowhere near the Villas, the Newcastles, the Evertons of this world. You're just not. So I'm looking forward to Leeds fans having less delusion and celebrating finishing 17th with a bit of humility. That'd be interesting for me to watch. What do you reckon, Dom?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I can see why they love the club and say it's a massive club. It is. Their support there is superb. We've been to many a game there, and when the fans are on it, they are on it. I have to say also, when the fans aren't on it, they're pretty poor, to be honest. They can, it can be a silent stadium. But yeah, I think they should be careful. I would go into this season and just kind of be quiet and enjoy the ride. And if it ends up you booking the trend and you do really well, fantastic, good on you. I'd like to
Yeah.
see that. I'm a big fan of. I want to see more clubs compete and do well in the Premier League. I'm all for that. I don't want it to be like this, cartel of the top 4 or 5. I want every club to do well. If you're part of that, brilliant. But yeah, just easy days, Leeds. Settle back in, and because you've also signed new players. You never know how it's going to pan out. You just never know.
No. Okay. Next one on my list of delusional fans, Spurs. Sorry,
Oh,
Spurs. You are now calling yourselves champions of Europe. Well, first of all, that is just wrong on every level. And you're also talking about building this cup winning machine. Really? You won the Europa League, which didn't have anyone dropping down from the Champions League at all last season. They had the easiest run to the final. Bodo Glimt in the semi-final. Yeah, that massive, massive club. Nothing wrong against Bodo Glimt, but they're not exactly AC Milan, are they? And then you played a really abject Man United in a really abject final and got over the line with well, it wasn't goal of the season contender, was it? Spurs fans, you are not champions of Europe, and I'm looking forward to Spurs becoming back being Spursy in 2025, 26. Thoughts on that, Dom?
yeah, I, I congratulate Spurs fans for enjoying winning a trophy. I get it. That's what we all want. It's the Holy Grail. I get that completely.
So do I, and I'm not having a go at winning
I know
it. You
you're
know
not, mate.
what?
I know
I'm
you're
not.
not. I know you're not. But I agree with you. I do love this Champions of Europe thing. It's a bit like, you can only really say that when you've won the Champions League. I know the Spurs fans will be, shouting at us now, saying, well, we are Champions Europe. Yes, you are, but not in the way you think you are. So
Yeah,
that you only reserve that one for when you've won the Champions League for me.
yeah.
So yeah, and you're not a cup machine. If you were a cup machine, you'd have won other cups and you'd be doing it regularly. You haven't, so
Yeah.
let's see how this season pans out, really, because you haven't started off too well. I know, and we've had this in previous pods. Pre-season doesn't say a lot, but getting walloped 4-0 by Bayern does tell you something. So just you need to improve a lot on last year.
Spurs winning the Europa League is like somebody saying, I bought a car from a main dealer, which is the Champions League, but then they've bought one from a backstreet sort of motor dealership
Yeah.
garage, haven't they? And still got a trophy, but it's not quite the one that you'd want from the main dealership. So let's move on from that. Two more to have a go at, just a little bit of fun. Arsenal. Gyökeres is the missing piece of the jigsaw. Is he?
Nobody knows. I
Exactly.
just don't exactly that. Nobody knows. He might end up being astonishingly good for Arsenal, and I hope he is. I hope it gives Arsenal what they need because again, it will actually would be nice to see Arsenal go the whole way this year and actually not tail off where you think, well, they haven't really got a chance. Because let's face it, they weren't really in the mix last year at all.
No.
Yeah, maybe he is, but nobody knows again yet. I mean, he hasn't. He's never played in the Premier League, so let's just wait and see. He might bag a hatful and be a revelation, and I hope he is. But he
Hmm.
also equally might just be another, you know, also ran in the Premier League and not his level. Let's hope it's not because they've paid a lot of money for him, and he believes he's the real deal. And I like that about a player; he backs himself. So
Hmm.
let's hope so. Arsenal will be hoping so because they're not had a proven striker for a few years now.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of watching him when he played for Coventry in the Championship, and he's a sensational footballer. But he was at the Championship level, and he's been to Sporting. Was it Sporting he played for
But
over in
yeah,
Portugal? Not quite elite. We're talking about elite level Premier League here. So I hope Gyökeres is the missing piece of the jigsaw. But Arsenal fans, stop talking about him like he's the second coming of Christ because he isn't. He might not be. He might well be, but it's highly
he's
unlikely.
not yet. Yeah.
And the last one, in terms of just having a little dig at deluded fans, Man United. Well, why not? They're just Man United, aren't they,
Oh,
really? You're a basket case of a club with a basket case of a squad with a manager who's had the worst win rate record of anyone in the last 20 years. And yet, because he's a young, new manager, he's got more time given to him, which is fine, by the way. But you ain't going to go from where you finished last season, which was about where you should have finished, given the performances that you put in the pitch. You ain't going to go from that to top four in a season. So get over it. Think about consolidating 10th place and building for the future. Man United fans, I'm sick of hearing the fact that you've made some decent signings. You're going to go back up to where you think you belong. Where you belong at the moment is below 10th.
I agree. Never been a fan of Man United. Never will be. I just hate how they run. I think the way what amazes me, Nick, is how they've managed to sign three players and spend 60, 70 million on each. Yet this is a club that's supposed to be skint, but
Mm.
can manage to pay 70 odd million in transfer fees plus huge wages probably as well. I thought you were skint. You're taking all sorts of money off your employees and treating your staff like shit, but you can still manage to sign three huge players on massive contracts and massive signing on fees. I love Mbueno. I think he's a proper player. I think Cunha could be a good player, but was he really all that for Wolves? I don't think so. Not really. He wasn't proven season after season after season. So the jury's still out on him. And Bueno, proper player. Hope he does really well.
Mm.
But signing those three players instantly fix all your ills? No, it doesn't.
No.
So yeah, I don't wish them well. I'm sick of everyone talking about them. All you ever see on Sky Sports News is Man United, who they've signed, who they're going to sell. It's just reams and reams and reams of Man United. It's like this is so boring. There are other teams we can talk about.
Yeah.
So true to that, I think we should move on because I don't want to talk about Man United, mate.
Excellent. Let's not give him any more airspace. Okay, so let's have a look at other things I'm looking forward to that I know we're going to discuss that you are as well in some cases. And I've put here some of it's hopeful. I'm hopeful of some of these things occurring. First things I'd like to say is thank you to Crystal Palace and Newcastle last season. I hope you've inspired less glamorous and less recently successful clubs to take the League Cup and FA Cup seriously because Palace winning it and Newcastle winning it. And in Germany, Stuttgart won their first, the equivalent of their FA Cup for 10 years. And there's around Europe, lots of teams won their cups for the first time in ages. I'd love to see more Palaces, more Newcastles winning trophies than the same old, same old, same old, your Liverpools, your Chelseas, your Man Cities, etc. So well done, Palace, well done, Newcastle. I hope you set the ambition, the fire of ambition under other clubs to make this season more interesting in the cup runs, because I'll tell you now, the Premier League is as boring as shit to a Championship following Middlesbrough fan. What are your thoughts, Tom?
Um, I would absolutely agree. We want more teams that aren't you so-called powerhouse teams winning cups. That's what football's about. You can't tell me that more neutrals will have been more invested in those cups and watched on the TV because exactly that. Strangely, there'd have been even more watching, I think, if it had been contested between, you know, two teams in the final that weren't big hitters. But I think sometimes it's that hopefulness of seeing Newcastle beat Liverpool and see Crystal Palace, beat City. You want to see that. So it was extra sweet, I suppose. But I'd love to see a final of two clubs that were outside the top six. I'm sick of all the commentators. All they ever talk about is these teams and the top six teams. It's all they're interested in, and their own teams. So I absolutely agree with you. I want to see more of that, and I'm hoping there's been a precedent set now that the teams think, right, that's what we want as well. Look at the good it's done for those clubs and those fans. So
Yeah.
and they'll want it again. They'll want more of it, Nick, as well. So yeah,
I'll be honest with you. Palace have been shafted by UEFA as a result of winning it. Whatever. We're not going to go into that, but you wouldn't take away that winning day. I watched the FA Cup final. I've watched every one since 1970, and I watched the FA Cup final. And I've got no skin in the game with Palace, but my God, did I want Palace to win. And I celebrated when they scored like I was a proper Palace fan, because that's good for football. I want more of that this season. Next thing on my list, I can't wait for the transfer window to slam shut, because it always slams shut. I'm sick to death of the rumours. I'm sick to death of who's going, who's not staying. We did an entire podcast episode on the transfer window recently. I just want to see, get it done, get it finished, move on. Let's start playing football and let's not get distracted. I don't want to go too much into that with you, Dom, because we've done it in a full episode, but I know your feelings are pretty much the same, aren't they, really? Let's get it over with. Let's get on with it. And let's build the squads.
I completely agree. It's starting to get boring, isn't it? It's starting to drag its heels already. We're not even Premier League season hasn't even started. It makes you impatient as well, because from an Everton perspective, we haven't quite signed the number of players we'd have liked, because we have got a really lean squad, because we released over 10 players at the end of last season. So we do need some players in the door. We signed 5, but if you like, we've really signed 4, because one of them was a second goalkeeper, which in my eyes doesn't really count the same. I'm looking at the players that are out on the pitch week in, week out. So I'm kind of still half excited, half interested, because we've got other players to come in, and there might be the old marquee signing, as from previous pods. Jack Grealish, please sign for Everton. I'll love you forever. So there is a bit of interest, but yeah, I want it done. And it doesn't kind of slam shut, does it, mate? It kind of slowly creeps, and then someone just quietly comes along who's like dusting around the door and just quickly shuts it, because by the time it happens, no one cares anymore.
Yeah. Quick question. Did Everton release Mo Besic in the summer? Because he must have had a 17-year contract, Mo Besic, didn't they?
Yeah, forever. I mean, he was. Do you know what? We signed him in 2014 after the World Cup, and somewhere along the line, someone deemed it fit to give him a new contract when he was a glass slipper from the moment we got him. I mean, he'd play some games and you were literally counting down to when he'd get injured. Same as when we had Yerry Mina. It's just like you could almost count down 3, 2, 1. Oh, there he's on the floor. He's injured. He's being carried off. So yeah, it always amazed me that I think he managed to get I think he was there 6, 7 years all in. Incredible. And he barely played a handful of games.
I was going to say he probably played about 12 games in that 6 years. He played for Borough on loan. Got injured at the Borough as well, but he was great for us when he was on form. But other than that, yeah, Mo Besic is a funny one. Just makes me laugh every time. What I'm not looking forward to is more abject refereeing. We'll talk about the VAR bit in the Premier League. We've talked about it on a previous pod as well. I don't really care about the Premier League VAR. I watch, live games when they're on a Sunday if they're worth watching. I watch match of the day highlights. I've got no skin in the Premier League game particularly, but I'm also really already upset by the standard refereeing in the Championship. The game that kicked off the season was Birmingham versus Ipswich on a Friday night under the lights on Sky, all that kind of razzmatazz and hullabaloo and all that malarkey. And the referee completely and utterly ruined the first half. He was whistle happy, inconsistent, stop the game, look at me, look at me. Seriously, it made the game almost unwatchable, irrespective of the fact that he gave a, shall we say, contentious penalty in the last minute, and Ipswich got probably a very undeserved equaliser on the overall sort of 95, 96 minutes. The standard of refereeing that game was appalling. Please keep your whistles to yourselves. It's a contact sport. No one's going out to maliciously kill anyone. Can you just stop blowing your bloody whistle and get some balls? Because you know what? I don't care if you consistently average, as long as you're consistent, but the inconsistency and the whistle happiness is killing the game. And the first game of the season was an appalling watch as a result of referees. I want that to improve. What's your thoughts, Dom?
I completely agree. Yeah, I watched some of that game. I didn't watch all of it, but I completely agree. And I'm like you. I think the key bit you picked out there, Nick, is it's a contact sport. So many times you see it where it's 50-50 challenges. No one's gone in, studs up. Fair challenges. You try and challenge for the ball. Someone wins it. There's generally no complaints. And then the referee's straight in with the whistle. And it also, by doing that, you start to encourage players to be constantly looking for the whistle, any
Oh,
kind of advantage to get the ball back. Just play the bloody game. And I agree with you. I much more admire the referees who have the gumption to let the game flow, even when you can see some challenges and some that might be on the cusp. Actually, it's much better to let the game flow, and you move past those pretty quickly and forget them because you've let the game run. So I agree with you. I'd much rather that. We can't have the game where it's completely managed. It's a bit like, it's hard, isn't it? Because we were saying with the VAR pod, you'd rather the referee the game and get the odd thing wrong. But then there's over refereeing sometimes in terms of trying to literally adhere to the letter of the law. It's like, come on,
hmm.
just let it go a bit. We're way beyond what we used to have in the 70s, early 80s. We're better than that now. So let's just let the game roll.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that. You see it all the time, don't you? And it stops so many good pressing moves
Mm.
where the team's got momentum and all of a sudden it's pulled back to somewhere you just think, oh, for God's sake, again.
Well, there was a newly promoted club against a team who came down from the Premier League, both heavily backed to be in the mix for promotion, either automatics or, playoffs, etc. Under the lights, full stadium, 8 o'clock, Sky, full razzmatazz, and it just died on its arse. By half time, I'm sat there going, I'm not even sure I can watch this again because it was just appalling, and it was purely down to the referee and his whistle happiness. It was an awful game to watch as a result of that. So can we just please not do that? I'm looking forward to that being a habit that gets broken very early. But they're under pressure, aren't they? Because they get assessed every week, and if they let something go, they'll be told off. Well, take the telling off and just be a better referee for the benefit of the football. That's what I would say. Next one, it's a social media thing, really. I'm looking forward to fans stopping, for God's sake, stop doing this, judging how successful you are by how big your away following is. We get it, you take fans away, we all do. North East clubs, all three of us, big followings to away games. In the Championship, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, other big clubs, we take fans away. It's not a measure of how big you are by how much you fill the away end at a ground. It just isn't. And it's just becoming more and more just tedious. There's pictures on social media. At Middlesbrough, first game of the season, Swansea brought maybe about 800 people, which was great. We're talking here about, God knows, a 6 hour journey and a 7 hour journey in some cases. And they brought just short of 1,000 people. And there's pictures on social media, and then fans are going, "Oh, we'd have brought more than that." Well, okay, big deal. Does that make you a bigger, better fan? It doesn't really, does it? On the day, support anyone who goes away from home, puts the money in the pocket, gets on a train, gets in a car, drives to an away game, no matter how many they are. Hats off to them. Stop judging how big your club is by how full your away end is. Because you know what? If you're judging it on that basis, Middlesbrough are as big as anyone in the bloody Championship. And it's not about that. It's about going and supporting your team. If there's 500 or there's 5,000 of you, hats off. Stop talking shit. What's your thoughts, Tom?
Oh, I completely agree with everything you've just said. I get sick and tired of that, and obviously, I can't be absolutely certain on this, but again, I'd happen to guess that the people on social media doing that have never attended an away game in their life, or possibly not a game in their lives. So, get off your keyboards and maybe go to a game now and again. But I totally agree because it's a complete day out of you. It's a long day. Especially if you're traveling 5, 6 hours, it's hard yards that long
Mm,
time cars or on trains. And when they get there, sometimes they might not see a brilliant football match, but they're still there supporting their team.
mm.
So hats off to all of them who do that. I'm completely with you. The amount of times I'm at games, particularly midweek ones, where I'd be like, that's a really good turnout there. Sometimes at Everton you might see in a way and it looks fairly lean, but there's still maybe 3, 4, 500 people there, and they've come up from 5 hours, 6 hours away on a midweek game. And you're like,
Yeah,
yeah, hats off to you, because that's a
yeah.
long way home, especially if you lose. It
Mm,
makes the journey home that much harder. But they've still done it, like you
yeah,
said, money in their pocket. It's not cheap. Credit to them. All
yeah.
credit. Yeah,
Good stuff. Next one I've got on my list is I'm looking forward at some point, probably about November, when it starts to get silly season and sacking season, to some mug chairman thinking that Wayne Rooney is the answer. Now, my question is, if Wayne Rooney is the answer, what the hell was the question? If Wayne Rooney gets a job in football as a manager or head coach, whatever title it is, anytime this side of the next millennium, I'll be amazed. But I guarantee there'll be some mug punter chairman thinking he's the guy who can save them when they need a new manager come October, November, and Wayne Rooney may well be back in football at that point. I think if that's the case, the world's gone mad.
yeah. I actually don't think he'll come back into football management. I don't. I think he's been burnt that much. I think he'll step away for maybe he's not forever, but I think he's into his punditry now. Um, he comes across to me like I don't know, a reasonably okay guy, brilliant footballer. Watched him at Everton. Watched him. Obviously, we've all watched him what he did at Man United. Hats off to him, incredible footballer. Um, but BBC have signed him up as a pundit this season. And I listened to the actual press release of what they were saying about him and how he comes across, and I was just laughing me backside off. I was like, he comes across, he's got a real understanding of the game, articulates himself really well, and the fans really love him. It's like, but he doesn't articulate himself well at all.
No?
I don't think he comes across. For me, I actually find him very frustrating because you can clearly see he does understand the game. He's played it to a very high level, so I think he does understand the game,
Yeah,
but he doesn't articulate it well for me at all. And I was like, this is staggering. The BBC should know better than to, spout a load of bollocks when they're actually putting a press release. I was like, since he just, if you listen to him, he doesn't come across articulate. He bumbles and stumbles and mumbles, and I'm like, I'm not really sure I want to listen to him on Match of the Day all the time.
no,
I'd much far rather listen to someone who's much more articulate and comes across eloquently and is able to express themselves and get their point across
yeah.
and give you insights into the game. And maybe it's one for a different pod, but I actually thought in the women's Euros, some of the commentary teams and the girls who were on the gantries doing the halftime, pre-match and post-match, flawless, absolutely brilliant to listen to.
Mm,
None of umming and ahhing and and repeating themselves, just really informed, really articulate, and really, really eloquent. And I sometimes look at the likes of Carragher and everyone else and think, step back, have a listen to these ladies, and in the commentary boxes as well when they're commenting on the game, because they could teach you a thing or two. Because I really enjoyed listening to them.
on the same subject, not that it's ever going to happen, I would love Sky to say, you know what, we're sort of done with you, Carragher. We're sort of done with you, Gary Neville. We're sort of done with that. It's old hat. Can we have some fresh faces? Can we have some new perspectives? Can we have some new energy? Because I am sick to death. I watch Premier League football as a TV viewer because we haven't got a Premier League club that I support. But my God, it's spoilt rotten by those two and their incessant gibberish and bloody, spouting opinions. And they're done for me. I'd love it if they just said, you know what, we've changed a lot of things in Sky recently. We're going to change you too. It won't happen, but I'd love to see Neville and Carragher particularly on the scrap heap because I'm sick of the same. Well, it's been doing it for about 10, 12 years. It's so
Yeah,
predictable and boring.
yeah, it's completely boring. They're almost seen as the saviors of Sky. Um, Not a big fan of Carragher, never have been. He's got too much to say, and he always seems to stick his oar in on the Everton thing. And it's like, shut up, mate. Really, we get you an Everton fan, and now you're a Liverpool fan. We get it because you froth at the mouth every time you talk about them. You can't talk about anything else. And already on his the rest of his football podcast, he's had a dig about the name, and it's like it's a naming rights deal. Get over it. Yes, it's the Hill Dickinson Stadium. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, it could be something else, but it's money in the coffers. Who cares? It's a stadium. So mind your own. It's doesn't really matter what we all know what your fans call it. Nobody cares. So at the end of the day, just get a bit better, get a bit funnier, and just talk about things that are actually more relevant. Because it doesn't matter if it's a silly name. It's bringing money in. So they've got a naming rights deal before the stadium opens. Spurs stadium's been open 6 years and they still haven't got a naming rights deal.
Yeah.
So it's money in the bank, Jamie. Get over it. And on that point, actually, he shouldn't have a job. Bearing in mind he spat at a fan out of his car 5 6 years ago. I know if I'd done that, I wouldn't have a job. So yeah, I would say don't rest on your laurels, Jamie. Get better at what you do and get more interesting. And if you don't, just go, because we are really, really bored of you. Gary Neville's got 3 podcasts now.
Yeah.
Jesus, really? Do we really need to listen to 3 Gary Neville podcasts? No. So, yeah, freshen it up. Nick and Dom do a good podcast. It's called The Half and Half Scarf, football podcast by two fans. If you're listening to it, you obviously know. But for me, I would far rather listen to more fans' take on the game than pundits, because the pundits come out with the same stuff all the time.
Now, you mentioned something there, and I'm going to take you to task on that. You said Jamie Carragher needs to get funnier. Now, that suggests that there's any level of fun in the first instance. To get funnier, you have to be funny in the first place. The guy's not funny in the slightest.
No, he's not. I think I meant that in more general terms. Yeah, he just isn't.
No.
He just isn't. So, yeah, it's just boring, and yet he seems to be on every single bloody week. And he's always on Everton games for some reason as well, which I hate. It's like, come on, Sky, do better. Yeah. Do you really need him to be on an Everton game? He's so biased, it's ridiculous. It's kind of embarrassing listening to him. It's like, you were clearly an Everton fan before you became a Liverpool player. We get it. You don't like us. We don't care. You know, he'll say, well, you're talking about us. Clearly you do. No, I'm not. I'm just raising a point that we actually don't care, Jamie. Yeah. The biggest thing about it. But what I'd quite like Sky to do is maybe get some people in commentary wise and pundit wise who just haven't played for Man United or Liverpool. Please, for the love of God, for a change, or Man City, it would be so interesting. And you know what I think also commentators do, mate, which something else I'd like to see as the season goes on. I really hate this from commentators and pundits. It's a real pet hate of mine. When the main presenter asks them the question and they go to answer and they start the answer by saying, listen. It's like, well, clearly they are listening because they've asked you a question. So they are listening because they want you to respond. So don't answer everything by starting it with listen. They all do it. They're terrible at it. And some are worse than others. But I think Sky's remit of pundits at the moment is fairly poor. I can't remember the guy who used to play for Liverpool up front. He's quite bad. I can't remember his name.
No, don't know you mean.
Played with Suarez in 2014 season.
Oh, Sturridge.
Sturridge. Terrible. Starts everything with listen. It's like, well, they are listening, aren't they? Because they've asked you a question. Just answer it. Little things like that, mate. They're real pet hate. So I'd like Sky to do better this season, but sadly, I don't think they will.
No, I think some of these are ambitious, aren't they? Anyway, listen, mate. I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of quickies. I'm looking forward to Arsenal finishing second again. And Arteta claiming that they're the best team in the league and they were just unlucky and all that kind of thing and sending off, so whatever excuse he's got this season. I'm looking forward to Crystal Palace cementing 12th position because they own 12th position. And I love Palace. I love Palace as a club. I love their fans. They're a proper club, aren't they, with proper fans.
And that's not a dig Palace fans. I mean, you probably have a say on that yourselves, but you do tend to finish mid, which is nothing wrong with that, by the way. But,
I give my right arm as a Borough fan to be 12th in the Premier League every season, right?
And an Everton fan, mate, I would as well. Absolutely.
But Palace, look forward to you finish 12th every season. You might as well just take it now, put your name on it, and say, right, we'll end up there, so
Yeah,
we'll play for
yeah.
that, right? Okay. On a more serious note, a couple of things I'd like to see. I'd like to see Sheffield Wednesday and Reading get their absolutely dire situation sorted out. New fit and proper owners. We talked about that on a previous pod about fit and proper. Sooner rather than later, I'd like them to have a chance of success in the end of the transfer window. So let it get it sorted. You know, Wednesday fans, great club, big club. Reading fans deserve better, and there's other clubs as well in some significant trouble. You know, Morecambe. I don't know if it's too late for them. They've gone. If not,
No,
let's get them resurrected. Okay. On the same subject of what's unfair, I'd like to see Man City have their day in court. I need that to happen because I'm sick of hearing about it, and B, is it just taking the piss that they got 115 charges that they just keep knocking back to another 6 months or the 12 months or the 15 months? Let's get it done. I don't care what the outcome is. I really don't have any skin in that game. I don't care what the outcome is. I just want an outcome because otherwise it's just hanging over and the asterisks of it. You know, you won the league, but did you win the league? All that bullshit. Get City in court, get it sorted. And if the FA have got any balls and the Premier League got any balls, do it properly. Don't agree off record that we'll just put it to bed and say nothing more. I want that happening this season. What's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. Absolutely agree. And I have a bit more skin in the game on that one, being also a fan of a Premier League team as well as Middlesbrough, being an Everton fan. I think Premier League, and we discussed in a previous pod, PSR and the Premier League, I think we're pretty much shafted Everton and used as a scapegoat and as example and an example. And yet Man City still haven't had their day of reckoning. And I suspect that because City have got power and money and probably hired the best lawyers going, that they've probably are deliberately pushing it down the road as long as they can, in the hope that everyone gets to the point where everyone goes, oh, do you know what? I'm so bored and sick of this now that we all know it's going to come out that nothing's going to happen to them. So we'll just move on. And I think there is a bit of that already, that it's gone on so long that
Mm.
people are just so resigned to that they feel that actually nothing's going to happen. That I think that's what City are banking on, that when it actually does come out that nothing's going to happen to them, people just go, well, why did it take all these years to come to that? Because we all knew that's what you'd say.
Yeah.
And that's what City want. They do. And I can't see anything of any significant note happening to them. And I think that's really wrong, because where did 115 charges come from? And if they weren't of any substance or note, it wouldn't have got to the point where they could actually take it to court, where it deserved the merit to be actually gone to court and to get to a point where it needed a hearing and then to have review after that. So
Yeah.
they're obviously of some credibility. They're not just Mickey Mouse charges. And do you really need this long to assess them? Come on. Something's going on in the background there that doesn't. I think everyone, any football fan knows they can smell a rat. So
Yeah.
I think you've got a really good point on that, Nick. I think every football fan, neutral otherwise, wants that to be dealt with this season. But I think they'll be very disappointed with the outcome.
I agree with you on the outcome. I don't think if it had been Brighton or Bournemouth or Fulham or anybody else that it would have been dragged on anywhere near. Because it's Man City, it is just beyond a joke. Anyway, let's move on from that. I've got some football related, i.e. sort of finishing positions, things I'd like to look forward to. I'd like at least one of the promoted clubs from last season in the Premier League to stay up. Now, as a Borough fan, I'd prefer it to be Burnley, but I don't actually care if it's Sunderland or Leeds. Just at least one of them to stay up to break that cycle. Out of the two championship promotion spots available in terms of autos, I'd like that not to go to parachute payment clubs, like that's ever going to happen. And I'd like at least three of the playoff spots to go to clubs who are not relying on parachute payments, just to bring some interest and parity and just some difference to the championship and the bottom end of the Premier League, because it's been so predictable the last 3 or 4 seasons. You come down, you're going back up. You go up, you can't stay up. It's like boom, boom, boom. You know, the definition of boing, boing. And I want that to change. So, and one more on that. I would love one of the three teams who came down from the Premier League last season, any one of them to do a Luton. I don't care which one. I'd love one of them to go all the way through, fall through the trapdoor, and end up in League One, just so we can all sit there and go, you deserve that because you've been badly run, or you've been too arrogant, or you've just been a set of tossers. So I've got Premier League, at least one to stay up, Championship promotion spots not to go to parachute payment clubs, 3 playoff spots to go to non-parachute payment clubs, and one of the relegated teams to drop through the league, right through to League One. None of that's going to happen, I don't think. Wouldn't it be nice if some of it did? What do you reckon?
I'd love that to happen. I'm not a believer in parachute payments. I really hate it. That's a pod on its own, which I think we should do, mate, and discuss that, because I don't agree with the payments. For me, the Premier League's so rich and you get so much money for going up. Well, do better with that money. Do better with that money. You don't have to spend it all and waste it all on transforming and getting rid of your entire squad and replacing it with players that might not be there in a year's time. Manage your money better. Do better, because you're getting so much of it that other clubs don't get anywhere near. Do better. Why the hell, when you go down, do you need a parachute payment? It's like a reward for failure. So
just on that as well, just on that, negotiate better deals with the people that you sign when you're in the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly.
If that means there's an exit clause for relegation, you're not obliged to pay their wages when you go into the Championship. That's better financial prudence, isn't it?
Absolutely. Do better. You're getting so much money for being promoted. Have some faith in the team that got you there. I get really disillusioned with that a lot of clubs then just transform their squads and their teams and have some faith with the players that got you there. Do they not deserve a crack at it? Do they not deserve to have a go? You might actually have more team unity and more team spirit. So that's a separate subject. But yeah, I completely agree, because I hate the parachute payments. It's made it much more weighted in favour of the teams that come down. So I would love that. That would be really refreshing for me. Yes, I'd like a team that goes up to actually stay up. It might show that something is working in terms of, they've actually got enough about them to compete. And I think it should be capable. But I think more teams should be able to do it. I'm always amazed that they can't. I wouldn't wish ill of a team coming down that they sink like a stone. It's almost like watching with glee some misfortune. I wouldn't want that. So I'd phrase it from my personal point of view, I'd phrase it slightly differently, that I think it could happen. I think Leicester are a prime candidate for that. And I think, linking into what you were saying about really poorly managed, well, they have been the last year. You don't appoint Steve Cooper and then sack him 2 months later. Where's your diligence there? It was almost like, Ruud van Nistelrooy looks really good as an interim manager for Man United doing nothing. That's really glamorous. We'll bring him in. Was that really thought of? No, it wasn't. Was there any due diligence? No, there wasn't. Was it cursed from the moment it started? Yes, it was. Could any neutral predict it? Every single person. Did everyone know Leicester would go down? Everybody. But they're so badly run now. They've lost all their big players and their good players. I don't really rate Cifuentes as a manager. Got his head turned when he was at QPR, and yet did this glowing statement when he left about it. It was like, well, if you loved him so much, why don't you just stay and do the job you were employed for instead of having your head turned by a different club because you want more money, basically. Yeah. So I disrespect all that. It's like you've been brought in by a club to do a job, and yet you get your head turned. And it was by West Brom, wasn't it? He got his head turned. But then, because the bolt's already, sprung, as they say, he's now gone to Leicester because QPR don't want him. Yeah. And I don't particularly rate him as a manager. I actually don't. I don't think he's done what QPR hoped for. And the fact that you can get your head turned so quickly, if things start going tits up at Leicester, he'll either lose interest or he'll be gone. So I do, and I don't want this for Leicester, but I am concerned that they could drop like a stone very easily.
You're nicer than me. I'd love it to happen. Not to Leicester, Southampton, any one of them, just because I'm sick of seeing the same teams come down and go back up. And if Leicester finish in the bottom 3 and go down, you know what? Let's have a little celebration. Sorry, Leicester. Could be you, could be Southampton, could be whoever else came down. I can't remember. Yeah. Now, we're going to finish with 3 international ones. First one is, can we have someone other than Celtic win the SPL, please? Unlikely, because Rangers have drawn their first 2 games. I think the season's over in Scotland now because Rangers have drawn their first 2 games. Yeah. That's how bad Scottish football is. So I want someone other than Celtic win the SPL. I'd like someone other than Bayern winning the Bundesliga. And you might say that Leverkusen won it season before last, but that very much felt like a blip. It didn't feel like a dynasty. They've since disbanded, and Xavi Alonso's gone and all that kind of thing. Bayern Munich are just steamrolling the league, buying the best players, and there's another. They'll win 12 out of 13, same as Celtic, those kind of numbers. But my biggest hope for the season is that Real Madrid win absolutely sod all. They win nothing. Vinny Jr. sulks off to Saudi, and he takes Kylian Mbappe with him. I would absolutely love to see that by about April or May, and certainly the summer transfer window. There's my three international ones, mate. I sound bitter, I sound twisted. I've got no skin in the SPL. I've got big skin in the Bundesliga as a Dortmund fan. It's not about Dortmund, it's just about not being Bayern. And just Real Madrid are just a set of wankers, aren't they? Anyway, right, moving on from that, what do we think?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was on the train going up to Rangers and chatting to three Rangers fans, I actually posed the question and said, "What do you think of Scottish football? Are you invested? Do you find it interesting? Is it is it is it a, is it interesting enough? Is it competitive enough? Does it gauge people to buy into it?" And they actually all said, "Yeah, they're really into it and they enjoy it." And I, for what you know me, I'm not really sure of things to say, mate. But I actually struggled with a response, and I was actually really surprised. I said, "Oh, I'm really surprised at that," because it goes into what we were saying about what's your expectations? Are club and players and fans aligned? Because I think for fans of all the clubs below them, it must be so demoralising knowing that your expectation is either to finish a strong third or fourth or top half of the SPL, which has 12 clubs in it, or to have a cup run. Aberdeen last season won the cup and they celebrated because it's the first time in God knows how long they've won a cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that quite. But then they are Rangers fans, so they, in a way, and this is not criticising because they were great lads, but maybe it's because they know that they have got more of a chance. For them, there's more buy-in because they're. But equally, when they were talking, it's all about them and Celtic, and they know it basically. So
Yeah.
really, the whole conversation was around them beating Celtic. There was never anything about them finishing third or fourth or below that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't their arrogance. It's just I can see why they were like that because they're so used to those two being the top clubs. So they pretty much know that if they don't finish first, they'll finish second. But where does that leave all the others? I really liked last season, by the way, Aberdeen bringing in Jimmy Tellin from Sweden.
Yeah.
They really invested and did the diligence of trying to bring someone in who could probably change them. And it started off really exciting for Aberdeen last year, and everyone was thinking, "Hey, what's going?" And then all of a sudden, the wheels came off. But they rallied and got a cup. I'd be rooting to see if they can do something again this year because again, for me, I just think it's a bit of a dead spectacle. You want more teams involved and you want stronger teams. But
Yeah.
Alex Ferguson's come out numerous times and said, "What I did with Aberdeen in the early 80s, that will never, ever happen again."
Yeah.
And it comes down to what we said before, mate, power and money and dominance. And it's killing the game. It's killing the game.
I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to leave the Bundesliga out there. I'm going to leave Real Madrid out there, and I know you've got feelings on Real Madrid. Do you want to say something about Real Madrid? Go on.
I agree on Barca and Real Madrid. I think I would love to see someone in La Liga win it apart from Barca and Real Madrid. There's some really good teams in La Liga, really good teams. I'd happily go and watch any of them, but I'd never go and watch Barca and Real. They're everything I find abhorrent in the Spanish league. Something not quite right with Barca. I'm not quite sure how you can pay Marcus Rashford 300 grand a week when you haven't got a pot to piss in as a club and you can't register. You manage to afford to pay his wages. Strange. Real Madrid. Do you know what? When you watch them in their pomp and when you actually watch them in an isolated, whether it's a Champions League final for the 12th year in a row or whatever, yes, they can play some beautiful football. If you're a fan of football, yes, I get it. But as a club and as an entity and what they actually stand for, I hate everything about it. And their fans are the worst. They are just abhorrent.
Yeah.
It's just really, come on. They just whine and moan if they don't win a Champions League. And if something goes against them, they whine and moan and criticise and don't get behind the club. Terrible support. So yes, I'd love it if both of those didn't win anything. I'd love it if Marcus Rashford wasn't registered for the season because that would serve him right. And that someone else in Spain wins. Preferably someone other than Atletico Madrid, who are the other also ran now and again. Wouldn't it be nice if someone else popped up in Spain and won? It's never going to happen, mate, but we can have wishful thinking. I'm sure all the fans in those teams in those leagues think the same.
Okay.
We want stronger leagues, don't we? We want stronger leagues because it'll be good for European football and the neutral in general. Absolutely.
So on that subject, quite a few things we're looking forward to. Most things we probably think we're not going to see, but wouldn't it be nice? I'm not sure that the refereeing standard's going to change. I'm not sure we're going to get, the relegations that we want or the promotions that we're going to want. But on that basis, Dom, that's been episode seven of the Half and Half Scar Football Podcast. What we're looking forward to the new season. What we're going to look forward to on the next episode is we're going to talk about the managerial merry-go-round before it starts, but it will start. And we're going to talk about new stadiums, the fans' perspective, because you're going into and will have had experience at that point of, maybe one or two of the new stadium games at Everton. So thank you again for listening, watching, sharing, etc. Please don't forget to subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on whichever platform you listen or watch on. We're on YouTube, obviously. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Play. We're on all the kind of major podcast platforms. If you're not sure, search for the full name, the Half and Half Scar Football Podcast with Nick and Dom. You'll find it. Please listen. Please subscribe, and we'll come into your automatic sort of downloads on a Monday morning. So without further ado, Dom, thanks again for your time. We'll catch up with you on another episode.
Thanks, Nick. It's been a pleasure. I'm loving it. And yes, I echo what you said. Everyone, please get involved. Give us your comments, give us your notes, give us your thoughts. We want to engage with you all, and we can bring in your thoughts into future podcasts. So thanks for your support. We really appreciate it.
Cheers, Dom.
Cheers, Nick.